I
go
will
in there and type in the address and then the
call to order this meeting of the East Hampton Planning Board for
Okay,
Tuesday,
that would be
May.
very helpful
and
for
then it
that.
can help just, you know, look at the.
Yeah,
Thank you.
All right, I'll call to order this meeting of the East Hampton Planning Board for Tuesday, May 3rd, 2016. Is there anyone here to speak to something that is not on the agenda? All right, moving right along to our meeting minutes for the April 19th meeting. Did everyone have a chance to look at them?
Yep.
Any errors, omissions, changes?
Nope. A motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 19th.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? No. All right.
I wasn't here.
Oh, Chet will abstain. He was not present. Good catch, Chet. No A&Rs. So moving along to new business, site plan approval for 5 Chapman Ave, Michael Bear. Come up to the podium and tell us what you're doing, what you're planning on.
There's some, yeah, you can.
Okay.
I'll close that while I'm up. Hold on. I got it.
Thank you.
Supplemental information being provided by the applicant.
Okay.
thank you.
You guys ready to run? Oh, okay. I'm looking to open a restaurant at my address at 5 Chapman Avenue. I'm downtown business-owned property. I did have a prior site plan approval for a restaurant and a bed and breakfast on the 2nd floor. That site plan had expired. There has been some alterations to it, and that's what you see before you. So plans for a restaurant at that location.
Can I confirm that you're Michael Bear?
Yes. Sorry.
And 5 Chapman, as you just stated, that is in fact your residence
Yes.
as well?
Yep.
And so, I was trying to figure out from the drawing, is this all indoor? Is there an outdoor component, or?
There is outdoor seating that is accompanied by it, yes.
Okay.
That was approved by the liquor license.
Okay, and so, maybe if you come over and show us, I'm just trying to figure this out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key is small.
Yeah. So on here,
Oh, I didn't have bigger colored ones of this?
there may be larger ones that were filed that
Oh,
just didn't
okay,
get to us, I don't know.
All right, so this is a patio area on the
Yeah.
side of the house.
Okay.
That area is licensed, and so is this.
Okay, is this for seating, or is this?
There is
Okay,
for
there's
seating.
patio for seating there too?
yeah.
This is all indoors, right?
This is all indoors.
Okay.
And this is the only area that's licensed, so not the entire building.
Okay,
So this is this rear component is the commercial section
yep.
to the mixed-use building.
Okay, and so this is all
My
the
private-
residents?
My private residence, yes.
And, but there's a separate kitchen and everything, right?
Yes.
It's all,
Yep.
everything takes place in that area
Yep.
outside there? Okay.
Still waiting for approval, and as you'll see, like from the health department, my plans have not gone before her, because I'm still settling up with
Hey,
the
Jesse,
structural
can we-
changes that have to take.
Yeah, you can go
Back
back
to the
up
mic,
there.
just so we
Sorry.
can record it. No, it's fine. It's just that the microphones, they're not projecting in the room, but they do pick up audio for the video, so.
So yes, what will be the actual restaurant is vacant space at this time. The plan starts to go before the Board of Health. At the moment, I'm waiting for my architect and the building inspector to settle on some issues in regards to the structural changes of the building to make it commercial use.
Okay.
I
And,
do have architect's plans for the restaurant, which are in that tile packet as well.
okay,
So there's a line drawing of the restaurant plans
right,
with the equipment that I already own.
okay.
Is your main intended entrance from Union or Chapman?
Actually, both. So there's an entrance, there's a sidewalk entrance on Chapman, and I had an accessibility to a parking lot that is behind me off of Union Street. So there is a 42 space parking lot directly abutting my property.
Got a question. I was on the planning board when we gave it an original
Yes.
permit.
Yep.
You had a bunch of motorcycles back there at the time. Is that where your kitchen's going to be? Or your
Yes.
restaurant's going to be where those motorcycles were in the back there?
What used to be my former motorcycle shop display.
I think that, if I remember correctly, the biggest concerns at the time was the parking on Chaplin Avenue by the fire department.
Yes.
Because you said that trucks couldn't get through there if you had parking on both sides, if I remember right?
Well, there's only parking on one side of the street as it exists now.
Okay.
And then part of that site plan approval process, the planning board requested that I tear down about a 550 square foot of garage to access the parking lot behind me. So that'll alleviate the tension on the parking on the street.
There was also some concern with the guy in the back. You're trying to make some kind of arrangements for parking spaces in that
Yes.
parking lot. How is that working out?
It has since changed ownership, the building. So at one point I was renting parking spaces from him. The change of ownership, at this point I don't have to lease the spaces. I have an easement to the property now that's deeded to the property for use of the parking lot. And then I am downtown business only, so I am exempt from parking regulations as well. I'm hoping for pedestrian traffic. I'd like to be a neighborhood spot. That's really what I'm after. I mean, if you look at the plans, it only seats 32 to 34 people as they exist right now. There may be subtle alterations once I go through the health department, depending on what you may require or not require from me. But the capacity is low. I'm not looking for a super busy, bustling business, just a little small, intimate place.
What about deliveries? What do you anticipate for that sort of stuff?
There's already delivery trucks on the street every day for Shelburne Falls.
Yeah.
So there's always the food service group truck or like on Chapman Avenue already.
But what do you expect for your restaurant?
Minimal deliveries, 1 day a week.
Yeah.
So.
During business hours or in the evenings or?
Well, I'll be open at evenings. I plan to be open at evenings, maybe a Saturday and a Sunday during the day. But yeah, deliveries will be during the day, during business hours. And like I said, the food trucks now are small. I don't know, won't be an issue.
Yeah, and there's space there in front for loading and unloading or in the driveway
I
or
have a
something?
driveway access that goes right back to the place, and then I also have a 4-foot wide sidewalk that runs the full length of the house as well.
Okay.
So it should be easy enough for them.
Am I reading correctly here that you've had your liquor license approved?
Yes.
And there were a bunch of concerns in here from the health department.
Yes, and that was because I haven't brought my plans before her, and that's because I've been trying to navigate with the building inspector over some issues that arose. So my architect in here is settling those. Once that's completed, I will bring the plans to her for review.
Okay, so she hasn't seen the plans yet. And when do you think that's gonna?
Well, actually, I should have a response in the next week. So
The plans will be complete to her next week?
then I'm hoping that I have an answer from the building department within the next week, and then I can take the plans to her. Yes.
You said open weeknights and then maybe weekends during the day. Are you planning on doing 7 days, do you think?
No. I still live there, so it's my residence as well. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not looking to, I'm thinking like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, type of thing. Like a Thursday night, Friday night, maybe a Saturday, Sunday brunch, that kind of a thing. But
What kind of hours do you think you're planning on doing?
I'm thinking,
Yeah.
5 to 10-ish, somewhere in that range, 5 to 11. Like I said, more of a neighborhood, little hangout place.
One of the other health departments was the smoker.
Yeah, I had some concerns in regards to my smoker. I did send a little bullet point list for the smoker that I currently own. I will gladly remedy anything that the health department will require.
12.95D talks about the adequacy of methods for disposal and the site plan approval criteria. You commented here that you're going to be using trash barrels with lids attached to wheels. Are these just the standard residential green ones that everyone has?
That everyone has,
And that's going to be adequate for?
there's several restaurants in town that use them, so I'm assuming yes. My answer to that would be yes.
Yeah, 'cause she
And there
was-
again, I'm having a limited menu in a small place, so I'm not expecting a lot of waste. I'm really not, so.
So you talk about the smoke issue as well, which the health inspector raised as an issue.
She had some
And
concerns, yes.
you've been smoking at your residence, which sounds weird, smoking weed,
I know.
for over 3 years,
3
you say.
years,
and there's
with
been-
that unit, with the unit that I hope to use for the restaurant, so.
Have you actually spoken to any of the neighbors?
I'll go back
Oh,
to
yeah,
those barrels.
absolutely. They're actually pretty excited about the project, so.
There was, we'll get back to the trash. The health department, they also have concern on how the trucks will get access to the back and how How you will keep vermin and other animals from getting into those barrels? Because you're not using a dumpster, right?
I would prefer not to. Those trash containers on the wheels are easier to use. I would roll them to either the curb on the Chapman Ave side or the parking lot side behind me, depending upon where the trash company wants to pick it up. But there's already dumpsters in the whole neighborhood getting emptied. I mean, I think there's one behind Snap Fitness that gets emptied at 4:30 in the morning.
Right, but her concern was the lids. Are they going to be secured enough
I'm gonna
for?
build a fenced area around it, so it would be that morning I would have to get up. Like my residential pickup is in between like 8 and 8:30 every Monday morning. So yeah, I'd have to get up at 7:30 in the morning, unfence them, roll them to where the pickup.
Okay.
Is there a public bathroom in that design? I didn't see it.
There's 2. So yeah. And that's why I haven't been to the health department yet, because I'm still settling things with the building department in regards to, so there'll be 2 bathrooms, handicap accessible.
Did you say handicap accessible just
Yes,
then?
yes, of course.
In the entrances as well?
Yes. Yep, the sidewalks, the entrances, everything's handicap.
Ramps?
I don't need ramps because the building's at ground level. It's at grade. So ramps aren't necessary.
You mentioned something had changed with respect to the parking lot in the back. You no longer have the leased spaces, is that right?
The property has since sold. So it's
Okay.
a new owner of the property.
Yeah.
I mean, he's willing to rent them to me. Like I said, I have an easement, onto his property now, so, it hasn't come in conversation with him. I mean, he knows that I'm opening a restaurant.
Yeah.
And it hasn't come up, so.
I just want to reiterate, an inn is no longer any part of it. An inn, I-N-N.
No. As I was developing that project with an architect, it was getting a little too messy, and I was, sacrificing too much personal space and compromising the structural integrity of the home. It was a romantic idea of a bed and breakfast, but its practicality was,
How many people do you think you'll be able to seat?
as the plans sit now, like 34 people. And there is some outside patio seating, which would bring me between, 18 to 20 more people outside, weather permitting, obviously.
And you said there are 42 parking spots outside.
Yes.
That seemed to be enough.
Just for clarification, those 42 spots are in the lot behind your building that you have an easement agreement to, but you don't have a
You don't have
lease
leased
agreement.
spots, right?
Right. And he's willing to rent them, but at this point, he and I just have a verbal agreement.
Yeah.
So.
I think we have a,
There's only Tuesday nights are like the busiest night in that parking lot. For the hours of that at my operation, that parking lot's pretty much empty.
so we would have some minimum parking requirements, I think, for that number of occupancy, but I'm a little bit confused, Jessica. Are you saying that those, without a lease, those won't qualify? Is that?
I'm just trying to clarify the information. So it sounds like there used to be a lease agreement with the former property owner, but the property has changed hands, and there's not a lease agreement in place now. So as effectively as it stands before you right now, there is no off-site parking because there is no lease agreement in place. But there is an easement that would allow that to happen in the future if the paperwork
Yeah,
can
there's
get.
a handicap walkway
Thank you,
from
I
that
appreciate
parking
the
lot.
clarification.
And it's
Yeah,
not-
handicap
So you're
walkway.
going to go through with the new owners to?
I can if that's what the request is. I mean,
Well, I mean, part of our determination is whether we think there needs to be additional parking. I mean, in the previous plan, I think they required a lease of 4 off-street parking spaces.
yes.
It's downtown business, so he doesn't have to have a specific number, but we are still, concerned with vehicular and pedestrian movement and that sort of stuff under the site plan approval, so we can still require some sort of off-site parking to sort of minimize the on-street parking, if that's something we think is important.
$34 people. I'd like you to be full.
Well, so with 34, and then you said that's not counting the patio seating though, is that right?
Another 18.
Another 18 for that?
I mean, I think Galaxy, I'm just guessing, is probably around the same seat capacity of around,
50?
50?
Yeah.
I would guess.
I mean, it would seem to me
The rear
that
patio's low. That's,
I mean, they've got a patio up front, and they have the bar, and they've got the restaurant.
Right.
So I'm guessing they're probably somewhere between the 40 to 50 capacity at Galaxy.
Right.
But they have parking right directly out front,
Yeah,
so.
it's a tough call. I feel like it does need some minimum number, but I don't want to apply an undue burden.
You're gonna have people working for you too, I would imagine. If you have 34 people sitting there having dinner, and you're gonna have somebody
employees-
outside, so you're gonna have to,
yeah,
what, hire 2 or 3 people, probably?
Yeah, the employees will park in my actual driveway to my residence. So none of the employees will actually like they won't be taking up the parking spaces on the street. Or, because I think my personal residence driveway is rather long. So it'll accompany the 1 or 2 employees that I have working for me.
So we're looking at maybe 52, 53 with you. So have these numbers in any way changed since the original permit, out of curiosity? When it was
No.
That's what you told the board you expected then as well?
Yeah. I think back then I was looking
And you
for
came up with
36,
four.
34 to 36 patrons.
Yeah, but I can't recall, there was no restaurant, that was like a,
It said
Like an inn, with an inn, right?
the
This
previous
says 32 to
decision says
36.
32 to 36.
yeah,
36,
it
okay.
wasn't 50.
So I think maybe 6.
So just to, for a point of reference, the parking regulations in the zoning, if this was a restaurant that was being built on a new site without anything else on it,
Yep.
the requirements would be 1 for each 4 seats of total seating capacity, plus 1 for each 2 employees on shift of greatest employment. So 4 divided by,
13.
Yeah, it's some 12 to 15, somewhere in there.
About 15 spaces.
but
Yeah.
there is on-street parking on Union Street around the corner.
Yep.
And it seems that there is on-street parking on one side of Chapman, although I would want to, I don't know if that's a true fact or not, but that's,
Right.
Now, am I being confused too? There was something about tearing down a garage.
Yes, I initially when I came before the board for parking lot access in the rear, they requested that I tear off 500, roughly 50 square feet of building to create the easement and the egress. So I have a handicap egress now to that parking lot behind me.
That's access, it's not additional parking, it's flow through.
Right.
Okay, I understand now.
And concerns about trash storage and yeah, so the
Right.
building came off because my building took up the entire rear width of my lot. So
Right.
there was no place for a pass through
Yep.
to the lot behind me.
And the rear lot back there, have you had discussions with the new owner about the possibility of leases?
We did, but we discussed the 4.
Okay.
The original traditional 4 spaces that I was originally approved for. If you require that, then I will, I could uphold that.
Yeah,
I don't know if he'd be willing, I have not had that conversation with him in regards to renting more.
yeah. I mean, did
And I would
you,
actually feel a little uncomfortable with that because it's, you're asking, I mean, I'm downtown business zoned. To be renting 15 parking spaces from another property owner, Coco doesn't have to do that. Galaxy didn't have to do that.
yeah, no, I mean, I
So
understand.
I'd be happy with the 4 because I've already conceded to that number. But 15 spaces in someone else's property seems a little excessive to me.
Right, well, there's a reason that downtown business doesn't have the same parking requirements, but it does still have the same concerns, and it all depends on where it's located.
And I would make a concession.
Various
to that.
other factors.
I would agree to that concession.
I'm struggling a little with that number. I do think that a minimum of 4 is required. I'm inclined, and we're looking at another business, we just came up with a number somewhere between, 12 and 15 of what,
Right.
so I think a meeting point is appropriate. I'm thinking maybe more like 6. Do you think that'd be a possibility?
I could address that with him.
I mean, that's arbitrary by my decision. What do you guys think?
I mean,
Maybe it's not
Parking's
relevant.
gonna, no matter what, it's gonna be an issue there. I would rather see if he can get 12 or 14, but that's gonna be a dream.
yeah, that's,
And then I'd be,
well, and also, I mean, you're holding him
asking
to
too
a standard for a different
Yeah, I,
Yeah.
zone, which I don't know that we need to go that high. I mean, part of the problem with all of it, I think, is that whether you have 4, 6, 8, or 10, people are probably going to be inclined to park on Chapman Street,
Yeah.
which,
well, actually no, because the back of my building is the back of my property is kind of be the face of the restaurant.
that's sort of the main entrance.
I have 2. I have a sidewalk on Chapman Ave,
Yeah.
and then
Right.
one to that parking lot. And then
So it would be an advantage to have
yes,
parking there.
yes, and then there's also the Big E's parking lot there, and then there's one behind the Indian restaurant that I still think Big E's owns as well. There's a lot of parking on the back side of my building.
So where,
We can't be condoning
I can't, and that's
parking on
property.
Big E's
Right.
property.
You can use someone else.
There's plenty of on-street parking on Union Street, though. There's no doubt about that.
Okay, so I just want to make sure, because I was a little, it didn't quite make sense. Did you just say that while both are accessible, both sides are accessible, you see the Chapman side as being sort of the main face?
Okay, for pedestrian, no, the rear.
The Chapman is the rear, so the main face is the Union
Yeah.
side. Okay.
can,
All you can actually see for the restaurant on Chapman Ave is a 4-foot wide sidewalk to like a little tiny space in the back of the building.
Right, because
So
the face,
it's more pedestrian friendly from the Chapman.
can you come show us on this drawing and where the other entrance would be? Because I'm just having trouble. So I see the entrance over here. This is the Chapman side,
Yeah,
right?
so the sidewalk on Chapman Ave.
Yep.
It's long, it's
Right.
over 100 feet long.
Yep.
And comes all the way back into here. Now, you do
Yep.
walk through this licensed area
Yep.
with the patio tables.
Yep.
This is the restaurant. And then here, you come out this side door. This is all my driveway. So we were discussing, like, there's my trash
Yep.
bins. You know, they get rolled to the curb. This long driveway is where my employees would park.
That's the trash inside there, right?
It's fenced.
the
It's
fenced-in
fenced.
area,
Yeah, yeah.
yep.
And then there's a sidewalk that goes straight through here.
Yeah.
So when you're staring at the back of the building, you can see this sidewalk coming down into this space.
But so customers are going to be able to come in here and
Yes.
go through the kitchen and,
There's walls.
There's
If
walls.
you, there it is. So if you were looking at it, this is the sidewalk coming down from
Okay.
Chapman Ave.
Yep.
So you'd come into the door. Here's seating. So this is walled off. So there's the handicap bathroom, unisex, and then here's the other entrance. This entire space is only 800 square feet. It's tiny.
It's not very big back there.
No, I'm basically doing a food truck as far as as far as the size of my kitchen.
this comes out
you can drive away.
So it's very
here,
yeah.
but it doesn't quite line up.
No, it doesn't.
So if this, I'm just trying to
Oh, the
figure out.
scale's different for the size of paper. That's all.
No, I know. I'm just trying to figure out where this door.
I did figure it out the other day because it took me months to leave it that way.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
This
that way.
is this. This
Yeah.
is
So this side door.
This is this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, so the doors were backwards.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the door that goes out the sidewalk to Chapman Ave.
Yes, and then the
This
unions.
is the door.
Yeah.
Trash will be out here, kind of in the fenced-in area, and you
Yeah.
come in the entrance there.
Sidewalk here.
But this is what
Here,
is-
that's the fence.
No, no, no,
This
no.
is the trash, isn't it?
This is this.
Right.
This is this. This is this. What's this?
That's the fenced-in area
That's
where
the
That's
there's.
the fenced in
Yeah.
area. Okay. And it's a porch?
No, it's driveway, grade level. It's only fenced in because I was approved for patio space on this side as well.
I see. Oh, for your liquor license.
Yes.
I see. Okay.
And-
Okay, so you
and
might
that-
have seating over here. You might
Yes.
not.
Yeah.
Okay. But so, from the orientation perspective, there is sort of a logical entrance from that Union Street side.
Yeah. Do I head back over there?
Yes, please. Thank you. Sorry.
Got you running around.
So, I mean, I guess that does alleviate some of the concerns about whether people are just going to park on Chapman anyway.
And then there's an abandoned lot that abuts my property that has like another 20 spaces on that. But there again, that's someone else's property.
Yeah,
It's not-
we can't
it's not-
use that.
So how's the back lot accessed?
Union Court, so right past Snap
okay.
Fitness.
All right.
There's a
I see.
Union
It's not like they're driving through the site to get to
Right
it.
across from the
Okay.
small
All
oven.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, there certainly is on-street parking down there in
By Union.
general on Union.
Absolutely.
and like I said, my intent is for pedestrian traffic as well. Like I want to be in
Yeah.
the neighborhood, a little tiny.
I mean, that being said, I do think that it's important to have some lot spots as well. But I don't know where we want to fall on that number.
It seems like he's willing to go with 4. I'm not sure that there would be any more availability if we were to push for more, and I wouldn't want to push for too much because we want it to
I'm
be.
paying for each one of those spots every month.
We want to balance it, meet the needs of the community, and make sure safety needs are met.
Yeah.
Yeah, but how can they get 7 in there?
That's up for him, the property owner. I don't want to speak on his behalf. I mean, at one point when I discussed with him when the egress was going in, we discussed 4. That's the last part of our
worded in
discussion.
the
Like,
old-
you know, there was never a proper,
It said
with the
4
second
lots.
property
So it was
owner,
4.
I never had a lease with him.
Shall lease.
He's willing to, I mean, when I had like a verbal conversation, but it never manifested into like an actual
Yeah.
lease agreement for
Yeah.
those spaces.
I mean, what do you folks think? Do you think that 4 spots in the lot is enough with the on-street parking on Chapman and Union and
Yeah, I
foot
would say
past
so.
traffic?
Yeah, if you go any more than that, you're putting a financial burden on the guy, I think.
I modified to 4 as well.
Anybody else have any thoughts?
I still think it should be more,
You think it should be more?
yeah.
I don't think so.
Oh, jeez, I just opened the door.
Just put on
But
financial.
I'm gonna be outvoted anyway, so that's just my
I mean,
opinion.
I could say he needs 8 or 10, but, you know.
Well, I mean, I think he would prefer he had 8 or 10 too, just not
But
have to
it-
pay for them.
Yeah,
So-
that's the
so
point.
that's,
You know, I mean, it's unfeasible financially.
and I mean,
They
it
want
is.
to keep it at 4.
More balance, but not so much that we're avoiding safety needs. The safety needs have to get met before everything else. And I think 4 hits that number as a minimum. I'd prefer to see 6,
Yeah.
15.
Right.
But I think the 4 is a minimum.
You know,
Below that, I think it's a safety burden that we shouldn't apply. It's a bit arbitrary, I admit, but
Safety on behalf of the fire trucks access, or safety on behalf of, what's the safety, I guess?
yes, would be my answer to that.
The fire trucks?
Yeah.
well, with the fire department,
They
Well,
didn't,
there's already parking on that
They
one
didn't-
side of the street. It's,
they didn't raise that as an issue right now. That wasn't.
Comments aren't there.
I wonder how come they didn't do it this time, but they did it last time.
Yeah.
but
I
we
don't-
have to look at the application. I mean, I understand where you're going and that you've got sort of the historical knowledge, but at the same time,
I mean, who knows what's
gotta
changed in the
balance.
interim, and so, I mean, I don't have a problem with the fire truck issue because the fire department didn't.
You've seen all their comments?
not fire department.
fire department
They
didn't
didn't
respond.
have comments.
They had none.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I think there was something,
Yeah, the main concern was from the health department, and that's just because she hasn't seen, she hasn't been brought before her yet.
I mean, my only concern with the parking is just, trying to prevent Chapman from becoming overly congested and,
Totally agree.
whatever, but I think everyone sort of has that same interest, and if there's available parking somewhere else, that probably alleviates that. Or at least limits it as much as there is
Well,
gonna
it's
be
the same
anywhere
thing-
else
well,
in
it's the same thing
downtown
on Conner Street.
business.
You want to go to Luthiers or someplace like that, you gotta
Exactly.
find a spot up on Hoyle Street or
That's what
Right.
cities
Maple
live
Street
in,
and
sometimes
walk.
you had to park
Right,
Packers,
it's
so
sort
that's
of
what
way it is.
inherent to the downtown business, right?
I think just sort of, just to make note that the downtown business zone, pretty sure ends at this property.
This is
Okay.
the last one.
Yeah.
This is the last downtown business parcel on Chapman Ave.
Gotcha,
And then after that, it's residential.
right.
okay.
And
But
that-
it's not
and-
residences right now, is that right?
I have no residents abutting my
I
property.
think you said 105 feet or something like that is the
Okay,
nearest residence.
So that,
but,
I'm just saying,
Yep.
that may make this different than other downtown businesses that are kind of more in the heart of the downtown zoning district,
Yeah.
right,
rather than being sort of on the edge with a residential zoning district. And that may be where some of that history in terms of requiring some
Right.
off-street parking may have come from, because it's kind of on the edge of the district.
Would you be able, do you think, to get any sort of signage or something for those parking spots in the lot?
Again, that's up to him.
Yeah.
I would assume if I'm forced to be renting spaces from him,
Right.
that would entitle me to put some signage on it.
Yeah.
I would assume. There again, that's up to the property owner.
Right.
Like what he'll concede,
I mean,
I mean, obviously, yes. If I was renting spaces, I would want signage on
Right.
it, and I'd want the designated right behind my building.
right.
But-
Well, and obviously you have an incentive to encourage people to park over there. It's a better spot for you to have them coming in from. I think that makes sense. I mean, to me, I think if there's 4, marked spots in a lot right next to the building, it's a downtown business, there's on-street parking in the area, I think that
Should be sufficient.
Concur.
that makes me comfortable on that front. Do we feel okay with that? Chet? Are you willing to reluctantly go along with that, or you want to dig in your heels?
I'm gonna dig in my
Okay.
heels.
Can we move on to the smoker issue and see if anybody has
So,
any?
just to be clear, so
We
it
haven't
seems that
voted
there's.
anything. I'm just moving along here to other issues.
Okay.
I think we.
So you have, seems to have a 4-0 on that one condition. I'm just
We-
trying to keep track of
Right.
potential conditions for the
Yeah.
decision.
Okay.
So, okay, all right.
And if,
I'll be 4-1.
all right, so at least 4 spaces and hopefully.
Well, we're not there yet. I'm just
Okay.
trying to figure out where people feel, if we need to have more
Alright.
discussion about that, or if we can try on the next issue. What are
Gonna
people
keep it.
thinking about the smoker? I mean, it seems like it was a big concern for the health department, but I also don't think the health department has really received much information yet from the applicant. And I think also, Jessica, will the health department have jurisdiction over that as part of the
Absolutely.
restaurant, right? So I mean,
Absolutely. She has to approve
Everything.
a
The
the entire
kitchen,
operation,
a
right?
kitchen plan
Right.
before it can, so that's, I just hope that if, when you work with her on a kitchen plan, it doesn't somehow impede this decision somehow.
Right.
But
Is there a preferred order of operations there typically? Is it best to have that done before this process?
it depends on the applicant.
I mean, my inclination with this,
She-
since he's been using the smoker and he hasn't had complaints yet, and clearly the health department has an idea of what the potential pitfalls are and possible solutions with a maintenance plan and things
And
like
there's, yeah,
that.
there's different styles of smoker, like I said, like in that, like there's, typically they're all wood operated, mine's,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, my inclination would be to do something similar to what they did in the last one, which is specifically state that he has to comply with Board of Health requirements.
Right.
But, I mean, we can even
I have to anyways, I mean,
right,
she's
right.
not gonna approve it. it's
But
just-
we can include,
Yeah.
we can
Exactly.
include even specific mention of the smoker.
Yeah, because she was looking for a remedial type
For exhaust system.
for the exhaust for
And
keeping
maintenance
down the
and things like
maintenance.
that, but I think more than anything, she was looking for information from the applicant, which she hadn't gotten, so
Right.
I'm hopeful that maybe this isn't, you know, as bad a scenario as she was anticipating.
I think on our end, mentioning it as you described covers it well.
And then she can make her determination about that.
But she also stated that she is requiring a smoke remedial system in place prior to any approval from her office.
Yeah, that was several years ago though, wasn't it?
Filtration system on it,
No,
whether it meets our standards or not, it's a commercial.
Yeah, that was
Last
September
September.
of 15.
And that memo was directed towards the building inspector, so
Yeah.
that's like kind of an internal system. Again, sort of just making clear where the jurisdictional boundaries are, that you're concerned about uses that are happening inside the building, but not necessarily the systems in place inside the building. And that's your jurisdiction, to make sure that those uses happening inside the building aren't having an impact
On
to
the
abutting
neighbors.
properties and
Right.
not impacting public health, safety, welfare.
Right.
Gotcha.
Neighbor here maybe.
So I would recommend against putting something specific about a remedial system, but acknowledging
Right.
at least that the smoke could create a nuisance and that.
It has to comply with the
It
health
has to be
department.
it has to comply with the
Right.
health department.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
the amount of smoke when it's actually like, excuse me, when you're actually using the wood chips for smoking, it's equivalent to like that of like a pellet stove. Like
When
it's
does-
a gentle, soft, like,
How does the smoking, I mean, is this something you're smoking during the day so that you have it prepared for you to use
Yes.
that night, or you?
yes, I'd be smoking during the day, so it'd be ready for dinner at night.
Okay. I mean, does anybody else have any other thoughts about the smoker? I'm inclined to think that that's more in the health department's jurisdiction as well, but I'm happy to entertain questions or.
Would you be using the smoker on on the days that you're going to be
On
open?
the days that I'm gonna be open, correct.
So it would be limited to that.
Yeah, so yeah, I would assume on the days that I'm not open, yeah. Unless it was for personal use and I was having a friend over or something, but yeah. Like I'm using it now, you know,
Right.
so.
Right, there is that fact too. And then I think the only other thing the health department raised was with the trash and removal,
We talked about.
which we've covered in a fenced area and that sort of thing.
And there again, at her discretion, if she wants it relocated somewhere else on the property, I'll oblige, obviously.
Right. I mean, that also sort of falls, I mean, we're concerned with sort of protecting it and keeping it enclosed, but if she wants it moved somewhere else, that's part of the health department regulations, that might.
That impacts the site plan because you've approved it to be in a certain location.
Right. But I mean,
So-
we can't very well, I mean, I don't know what the rules are as far as proximity of your dumpster to your
I don't
kitchen or
either.
anything
No,
like
but
that.
I think if it's
so-
within that general
If it's in
area,
that
that's
fenced in.
area,
Right.
as long as it's within there,
Right.
it's fine. But if it all of a sudden gets moved to a different
Right.
part of
Then
the site.
he's gonna have to come back.
I mean, I know it's a different site plan, but my previous site plan, that's what it was approved.
Yep.
So,
All right. Does anybody else have any other questions or concerns about this from the board?
I want to just ask a couple of quick ones
Yep.
here. The 12.9 site plan approval criteria talks about integrating your development into the existing landscape and design down there. Do you have any vegetative plans for the front? Or
yeah, actually, it was marked on the key. So yeah, there's I have perennial gardens surrounding my whole property,
okay.
and actually a lot of maple trees. For as tiny as my lot is, I probably have the tiniest lot on the street. And I have all the trees.
What about lighting?
Oh yeah, lighting.
Lighting?
Oh, lighting, yes. I have exterior lighting, pole lamps around the house, exterior lamps at all the doorways. And of course, what will be the restaurant will have all the emergency lighting that's required by me with the building department.
Coming from that Union Street lot, is that area all lit? There's street lights there,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, he has a pole for that.
For that lot?
For that
Okay.
lot. And then I have exterior lighting on my building
Yeah.
to establish the boundaries of where my property is. And then also, there'll be a sign and a sign light out there that
Okay.
I also have in my plans.
Good.
You still have people living there when this restaurant's gonna be going on, or?
It's a single family home. I do have a roommate. Yes, I do have a couple roommates.
Oh, it's not gonna be an inn or anything like
No,
that?
it's not gonna be in there.
No, the inn's
There'll
off
be
the
no
table.
transient
Yeah,
lodging.
just-
There's no transient lodging there.
Yeah.
I guess
asking,
that
that's fine.
went by the wayside.
Anybody from the public here to speak on this? Would you like to say something?
Yeah, my name is Lisa Fusco.
Here, why don't you come up here just so
Okay.
we can get at the microphone?
Hello. My name's Lisa Fusco, and I live in Northampton. I wrote it on the thing there, 130 Cross Path Road. I've been friends with Michael for 6 or 7 years, and he's, kind of metamorphosized with this process in terms of what he finally came up with. And this is the idea that I really fully agree with. So, and we're best friends. So, I've been with him the whole way through this process. A couple of things just to clarify, either he forgot or you guys didn't know. With regard to the barrels, and I've owned commercial property here since 2002, have had to work with the building department, didn't have to do any site plan stuff, but.
Here in East Hampton?
In East Hampton, yeah. And love the old mayor, love the current mayor, really, any issues that I ever had were immediately addressed, so it's been a pleasure doing business here. And I own Casey's Big Dog Saloon up the road. With regard to the barrels, when I had my property on Main Street, they're tall lidded barrels that you see. They have a metal rod on the bottom where the truck can actually pick it up and bring it in. These are very critter proof. I was a game warden for 20 years, Mass Environmental Police, and I know how raccoons get in and squirrels get in. And the way they kind of hook over, and I don't know if it's the way they're balanced or their height, but they really are good at keeping the critters out. So I would feel comfortable with that. With deliveries, he is right, Shelburne Falls does get some deliveries, but a lot of our stuff, I'm gonna be helping him cook. And there's a place called Restaurant Depot. They have about 40 locations throughout the country. It's cash and carry. They have great meats there. They have a lot of produce, so a lot of our stuff is going to be making a weekly trip down there to do that. And you do save a lot of money. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Pick's Place in Holyoke. I think it used to be called the Locker Room, but he's a friend of mine, and he started going there just doing the cash and carry, saving $300 a week. He does a lot of food and a lot of business, but he's saving $300 a week. Between there and probably Arnold's Meats, we'll just be doing it ourselves. And then for produce, again, we're small, so, and they're a minimum order. Cisco, I think, is $250 or $300. That they're not the kind of company that we're going to be big enough to meet their minimum requirements. So I really don't think there's going to be any big delivery truck issue. Galaxy also, Jessica, you had mentioned his outdoor seating in the front and then his indoor. He does have a beer garden in back, and I would say that's probably 30 people. So I think he's a fair amount higher than what Michael's is. And we need to show the health inspector the smoking unit. It's small, it's 10 square feet. And in our discussion about, well, how do we deal with the smoking issue? How do we put something on it? But it's also a propane unit. It's 80,000 BTUs. So, and I have pictures I gave to Michael, but it kind of looks like a big coffin on wheels. You can tow it. It's about 6 feet long. The cooking area is 10 square feet. So what's heating that is the propane. There's a V-shaped trough that runs the length of it. It slides out. We put our soaked wood chips in there and generally don't reload it. When smoking meats, 2 or 3 hours really imparts that smoke, especially if it's on like a whole pig. You don't really need it much more. In fact, sometimes you don't really want it because then it's like, wow, this is really, really smoky. And you just want it smoky. You want it that good flavor. But we will talk with Jackie, and I've spoken with her before. I think she's great. And he said, what do you think? I said, I think she's firm but fair. And she does know her stuff. So no problem with working with her. And boy, I hope we do have a parking problem, right? I think there will be some walking traffic, and I've been over Michael's house at all different hours of the day. They are pretty strict on enforcing that parking thing. If someone attempts to park there on that wrong side, they will come and ticket. They don't tow unless it's a snow thing. But it's pretty clear that even if you tried parking on the other side, even another car can't get through. It's a fairly narrow street. But I think it's something where we're communicating with the customers, and as people come in, we explain it to them, like, this is where we'd rather see you, or by the way, we have these, I say start with 4 spots like you might vote on, and then if there's a problem, maybe increase to 6 and work something else out with the landlord. One of the greatest things about East Hampton is that we're not pulling change out of our pocket all the time to park. And in saying that, I'm comparing it to Northampton, so I don't agree with all their parking rules. I think it will be okay. But I think with the access to the lot, or maybe there's a deal that could be struck with Mike Supernaut from Big E's to say, hey, this is only 4 nights after 5 till about 10, and maybe a Sunday brunch, you know, could I rent the farther part of the parking lot and relate that information to my customers? Because Mike is a great guy, he does a lot for this community. So it wouldn't be right to just say, oh, well, you can park over there, but maybe there's something that we could do to work with him to work that out, without Michael having to spend a lot of money in doing so. So I just have those couple of things. I was taking little notes, so I hope that helps.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
All right, anybody else have any other questions for the applicant? Comments?
You looking for a motion?
I guess
It looks like, I just want to clarify, I'm not yet making a motion. Looks like we had 2 potential stipulations. One was that the applicant lease 4 lots on what street? Help me so that I can word this correctly.
It's the parking lot's Union Court.
Union Court. Do we want to be that specific?
I think we can, yeah.
Yes.
I was actually gonna probably pull up the parcel ID number and put it in the decision.
Okay,
so
I
it's
won't be
clear.
able to throw that into the motion, so
No,
hopefully you'll
I know.
Okay.
On my butters notices for the liquor license, has the parcel ID.
So I'm just going to work that one condition out, all right, and then I'll put it in the motion at the end, so if that's okay.
You're gonna do comedy act?
The applicant will lease,
Here, you want to look at the language in
Yeah,
the
that'd be
last
great.
one? Or we're going to specify the exact lot?
the applicant shall lease 4 off-street parking spaces from specific lot, fill in copy
It
there.
looks like it's lot 52-67,
Okay,
3743 Union Street.
and make patrons and tenants aware of the availability of the spaces.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, repeat that again, please.
I guess it's not tenants anymore, right? Because we're not doing it in.
Yeah, you're right, so make patrons.
Yeah.
The applicant shall lease 4 off-street parking spaces.
Hold on. Shall lease 4 off-street parking spaces at Union Court.
Thank you. At Union Court, and make patrons aware of the availability of the spaces. There's a little bit more we're adding here.
Hold on.
Tell me when you're ready.
Of
It's a process,
availability
sorry.
and make patrons aware of the
Availability
availability of spaces,
of the
of
spaces.
off-street parking spaces. Okay.
Next sentence.
Okay.
Evidence of the lease shall be submitted to the planning board and building department as a condition of the certificate of occupancy.
Evidence of lease agreement shall be provided to planning department and
Building
building
department.
department
As a
Um,
condition of the certificate of occupancy.
as a condition of the CO. So you're aware, I never sign off on COs.
So is that an irrelevant
I'm just saying that it could go to the building department and he could do a CO and I would never know.
So
He
should we
wouldn't-
just say planning board?
He wouldn't look at the special permit or the
I
site
mean,
plan
he
approval?
would, but I would hope that he would. But what I'm just saying is there's no sign off for the planning department on
Right.
Oh, so
on a CO. On building permits, I have to sign off on them before they can even be granted. And I need to make sure that whatever they're showing Joe is what they got approved for.
So
But
should
with
we
a
just
CO,
try-
I don't see anything.
If she's not gonna look at it, what's the point?
I mean, you could still put it in there
And to
and we
give
could
to
stick
the-
it in the file.
Well, to give it to the building
At
department.
least you have something in there and
We could leave it then, omit planning board and leave evidence of the lease shall be submitted to the building department as a condition of the certificate of occupancy. Or equally
He's not gonna know what that.
fallacious.
He's not, I mean, I
Let's
would
strike
say
that
leave it
last
with
sentence.
I say leave it as is, and then that way it goes into the planning board
We'll have it in our
file.
file.
And we have it on file, so if there's ever a question, if there's ever a complaint about parking, we have a copy of the lease agreement in our files. It's like having a backup system. If Joe can't find it, at least I could find it.
Right.
Okay.
So we leave it.
Okay.
All right, so we have one condition down. We have a second condition, and that's that the applicant shall comply with the Board of Health regulations and requirements and obtain all needed licenses and permits, which of course you have to do regardless of this, but it just makes us feel
Okay.
comfy and sleep well. at
So
night.
the applicant shall comply with
The applicant shall comply with the Board of Health regulations and
Board
requirements
of Health regs and
obtain all needed licenses and permits. Fire and building as well.
obtain all proper,
I'm
what'd you
sorry.
say?
All
Yeah.
needed
All
licenses.
needed
All needed licenses and permits.
and
Okay.
permits.
All right.
Any other conditions anybody feels the need to add?
Just awesome.
I think we've covered it all, right?
Okay. So, I motion to approve the site plan for 5 Chapman Ave with the 2 aforementioned conditions.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You opposed, Chet?
Yep.
Okay.
So 3-1,
Yes.
you're voting too?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. 4-1,
4-1.
okay. Motion passes.
All right. So, written decision, what?
So, I have 14 days to draft the decision, and then since it's a site plan approval, there's no appeal period, so you're good to go after the decision stamped at the city clerk's. Yep.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Best of luck, guys.
Do well.
And just to make you aware, I am going to give a copy of this to the health department so that she has it prior to you going to see her, okay?
What's the matter?
All right. Have a good night, guys. All right, moving on to old business, the sign ordinance.
Okay. File away. Is that yours?
I think it is.
No, you
I have an
it
extra
right.
one.
Okay.
You got it?
I got
He's
it.
coming
Okay.
down here to Wallen.
No, I got it, and I.
So there should be a draft right in front of you somewhere. I put it in your seat. Okay, so where are we at? Okay, so I started to populate the outline that we talked about last time. So we'll just walk through this bit by bit here. So section 10.02 applicability, I eliminated out of doors. So that's now removed. Under definitions, I'm just starting to put words and terms that I'm coming across when I'm drafting it that I think need to be defined. So I haven't put a definition in there yet, but I'm just placeholding them so I remember to put something in there.
And that'll continue to grow.
And that'll continue to grow, and then we can work on what those definitions are over time. So awning, Awning sign, standing sign, wall sign, and the window sign, we agreed to that language from Wellesley, and I put that in there.
And now I have a question about that.
Of course you do.
I get to put on my lawyer hat and think of ways around these things now.
Yes.
So I'm curious if we want to limit, that we came up with that awesome 1 foot exception of things that aren't attached.
Yeah, yeah.
But when I read this, that's only for the illuminated signs. Would you agree that that's how this reads?
And/or.
And/or any illuminated sign installed inside the building within 1 foot. We want it to cover all of them, right? Like, I think if it's like a cardboard sign that's hanging, 6 inches inside a window, it's still a sign, right?
Yep.
All of which must be, no.
So I'm wondering if we want to move that phrasing to like any sign attached, painted, or otherwise similarly affixed directly to the glass surface of a door or window,
Within 1 foot.
either inside or the,
Within 1 foot of the glass surface of a window or door.
yeah,
Either inside or outside the building.
including any illuminated sign. Although I don't know if
hold
we
on.
need to have the illuminated sign in there. I mean, that
No,
would be
I
a
think
sign,
you're
right?
right. Yep.
So
Can we
maybe
do
we
that
just
whole
take out
section?
illuminated sign.
Hold on. Okay, so any sign attached, painted, or otherwise similarly affixed directly to the glass surface of a window or door within 1 foot.
Wait, no, I got a better solution here. What if you just cross out any illuminated sign? So it says your definition and/or installed inside the building within 1 foot of the glass.
Any sign,
Yep.
either inside this. There we go. Within 1 foot of the glass surface of a window or door.
Any illuminated sign is the only 3 words you're
Yeah,
striking.
I think that covers it.
Oh, so keep installed within the building. Oops. All right.
Any illuminated sign, that's it.
Does that
Any
make sense,
sign
guys?
attached, painted, or otherwise similarly affixed directly to the glass surface of a window or door, either inside or outside the building,
And/or installed inside the building within 1 foot of the glass surface of a
keep
window
that,
or door.
and/or installed inside the building within 1 foot of the glass surface of the window or door, and designed to be visible from the exterior of the structure.
I think that covers it.
Okay,
Sounds like a window sign to me.
good job.
Why is it gonna be within a foot?
Yeah, well, it's just gonna.
Because
It
if
can be
you,
6 inches.
because
or
you
8
can't
inches, 10
regulate,
inches.
Well, we could make it closer. I mean, we were trying to think of how close to a window you could hang a sign that's
Especially if-
meant to be a sign that's visible
Well,
outside.
if you're walking
Right.
on a sidewalk and look inside the building, it could be just over the surface, only a couple inches.
Well, I think it's within 1
It's
foot.
within- yeah, it's 1
So if
foot
it's
or
1
less.
inch, yeah, anything up to a foot.
All right.
the foot being the
Within-
maximum.
Yeah.
Within
We don't
that
want to make
foot.
it like 6 feet, because then you're regulating the inside.
Yeah.
Then
And you
it's like a
can't do
sign
that.
that's sitting on the counter or something
All
like
right.
that.
Okay.
So if a person puts up a sign and it's 6 inches from the window, that's still okay?
That's still okay.
It's covered by this
covered, yeah.
definition, it's
Okay.
regulated.
Think of
That's
like
just the 1
CVS.
foot.
So
Yeah,
when
yeah,
you go to
that's right.
CVS, they have all of that signage that's in the windows that's facing out,
Right.
and all of
And
the
it's like
combined.
hanging, it's not even attached to the window, it
It's
just
like a
hangs
banner.
like 3 inches in, yeah.
Right.
We're gonna
Right.
get those inside the statute. Boom. At least in our very rough
Mr.
draft, that's.
You want me to tell them about it?
No, I'm gonna be challenging it.
Okay. So then, mostly what I kind of focused on was the administrative side
Yeah.
of this, and I kind of bounced around a little bit. So there's some holes, but so this is basically the application process. And we have agreed to being filed in the office of the, oh, it says inspector, I think it's gotta say commissioner. Okay, so an application for a sign permit may be made at the same time as an application for a building permit. When a building permit is not required, a sign permit may be issued in conjunction with an application for a certificate of occupancy.
It's about the word may there, that you may get it at the same time as a building permit. Can you also get it any other time?
You can come get us, so you could get it at any time, really. It's, but you're gonna, if you're a new business, say you're a downtown business, or you're renting a downtown spot, you wanna do renovations, so you're getting a building permit because you're adding a bathroom, or you're taking down walls or something. Or if you don't need to do that, you're just looking to have a CO, and you wanna change the sign because you don't want the old business's sign there. So it would be in conjunction with that.
So is this, I know you like to design these so that it's like a new business in town gets to know what they're doing. Are you saying to them, you can piggyback these two things together, like that's
Pretty
the
much.
idea. But you don't have to, right?
You don't have to.
If you don't
but-
know what your sign's gonna be and you get your special permit or whatever, you can then come and just get a sign permit, because now we know
Okay.
what our sign is.
Right.
That makes, now I understand.
Or you can do it at the same time, it'll be part of it, or a
Right.
CO.
Right. It's also trying to
Okay.
make it more efficient for the building inspector to some extent too, so that he's not reviewing multiple, you know what I mean?
And
Like if-
he liked this, right? Didn't he
He
reply
liked
all
it.
on the
He
email?
replied all to the email.
Yeah, saw
And he-
that, yeah.
So, I mean, that's a good sign, since he's the one who's gonna be
That's
administering
what I told
it.
him. I needed him to look at it before the meeting, so.
Yeah.
And then this is all new. I mean, there was stuff in the old ordinance about some things that needed to be submitted, but this makes it really clear.
Yep.
So if for standing signs, it has to have a location plan or a survey showing the property upon which the subject sign is to be located, the proposed location of the subject sign on the property, the distance of the proposed sign from the subject property's boundaries, and all existing structures on the building on the subject property. All such plans shall be to a legible engineer's scale.
Now,
What does that mean?
Yeah,
That
what
means
is-
don't show up with a hand-drawn, out-of-scale plan.
Is that a common term of parlance, or?
Yes,
Okay,
you
thanks.
find it in zoning, that,
Okay.
you know, plans drafted by an engineer, architect, landscape architect. You know, it's gotta be to scale. You can't have somebody coming in saying, well, my building is here, and I wanna put the sign here, and I think about from here to here is maybe around 10 feet, because then the scales are all off, and he can't really tell. And
So,
the
but does it
boundaries, I
just
think,
have
are
to be
over
to
here.
scale, or does it have to be professionally done? Like, does it need
It
to be?
just has to be to scale, and somebody
Okay.
can do that on a home.
Okay, so
home
like,
computer.
this gentleman here, if he wanted to have a sign in his front yard, he doesn't necessarily need to hire an architect to do
No.
professional drawings.
No,
It just has to show the distances and be to scale.
right.
Okay.
And you can hand draw that too.
Right.
It's not saying you don't, you know, it just has
It's
to be.
just gotta be to scale,
It just
so we
has to
can
be
tell what we're
scale,
looking at.
right.
Would it be, I'm not quite certain, I have to admit too, that stood out to me, like, I just didn't know what it was. And we have this section of definitions, and it's really, is that the kind of thing we might throw in there, a legible engineer? Could that go in definition to help other people like me that hadn't had a clue? And then are gonna say, what does this mean, coming to ask you? No. I see
It
that as
seems
a
like,
no.
it seems like a goofy thing to put in there a little bit, because
Yeah.
if you're in land development,
Okay.
you know what a scale is. I think where it may be confusing is for somebody like him who
Right.
doesn't have any.
I mean, to scale, I would have understood, but to a legible engineer scale, that, like, I don't know what that is.
Well,
And-
we
and
can
this
take
is-
out the legible engineer and just say
Well,
that
this
such
is
plans
directed
shall be drawn to scale.
Okay, and I don't want to lessen your good work. Legible engineer.
I think
I
drawn to
stole it,
scale-
I didn't come up with it.
I think
I stole
drawn to
it.
scale is more, because I like your general philosophy of being written for, 5 Chapman Ave, like, so that somebody doesn't need to know what they're doing before
Sure.
they read this. So maybe just, like, such plans shall be drawn to scale,
Shall be drawn to scale.
Love it.
probably conveys that information.
Okay, so that'll be the same
That's
for
in
all of them.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's mentioned all the way down through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we have architect next. Is there a
Yeah,
difference
you
between
just take
engineer
that
and
part
architect?
out.
Doesn't matter now.
Yeah.
I want a scale. Is there a developer scale?
Yeah. I'll bring a scale to the meeting. It's like it's a ruler that has 3 sides.
As
Right.
long as
It
we're not
has a
doing a
different
lay-in.
scale on each side.
Yeah.
So, 1 to 10, 1 to 20, 1 to 30.
Yep.
All right, okay. So for all signs, dimensional drawings of the sign, including lettering, borders, proposed color scheme, which maybe we shouldn't have in there because some of the stuff that I've been reading
Yeah.
about First Amendment rights is even colors can't be regulated. But it's not saying that it's not saying he's gonna deny it, he just wants to know what it's gonna look like.
And
So
it's
maybe
not regulated
okay.
by color, but the color itself may create, like, we were talking about, like, color can sometimes be a safety concern or something like that, right? Like,
Right.
if you have a sign that's shaped and looks like a stop sign,
Right.
but it's blue, that
Right.
might be acceptable, whereas a red one next to a road wouldn't.
All you're saying here is we're not
We just
telling you
wanna
what
see
color
it.
you can do. It just has to be legible. So
Yeah.
that
Just
we
have
can
to,
see.
right,
I
so.
think that's valid.
Okay, height and other design elements, such drawings shall be drawn to scale.
Perfect.
For wall, awning, or window signs, a dimensional drawing or photograph of the facade indicating the placement of signs, the area of the facade of the business establishment, and the height of the sign, such drawings shall be drawn to scale. Color photographs of the property, including all buildings and the proposed sign location, and for all signs requiring a special permit, a copy of the decision from the Zoning Board of Appeals indicating approval of the special permit. Okay?
All right.
Okay. So permit fee, I scratched out city council because I found in the existing sign ordinance that the fees are set by the building commissioner with approval from the mayor.
Okay.
So that's from our existing. Processing time, permit issuance, the building commissioner shall process and complete the accurate sign permit applications within 30 days of the building commissioner's receipt of a complete application and upon remittance of the appropriate fee.
Do we need and accurate? I don't understand what that's doing there. Shall process and complete and accurate? Is that supposed to be and accurate, or should it just
Probably
be?
and accurate.
But should it just be shall process and
It's probably a typo because I was
or
reading and
process
typing.
any complete or a complete and accurate sign permit?
Let me check the ordinance I stole
Where you
from.
stole it from?
Hold on.
A complete and accurate,
Where is it?
What if it just says shall process
Just gonna-
all sign permit applications within 30 days of the receipt of a complete application?
Yeah. That would be better.
If it's complete, it's gotta be accurate. Hopefully.
Where am I at?
Number
right? Shall
3,
process and complete
processing
all.
time.
Process.
Well, I don't even think you need to do incomplete. I mean,
Oh, I
shall
Yeah,
process all.
I messed around with it, so hold on.
I agree.
Process and complete.
That's easier. So it shall be.
Jessica, what if it just says shall process all sign permit applications within 30 days of the building commissioner's receipt of a
Well,
complete
it's gotta-
application? It already says complete
Oh, okay.
application down
Shall
below.
process
All.
all
Sign.
sign permit applications within 30 days of the building commissioner's receipt of a complete application
And the appropriate fee.
and-
And that's not plural on
And-
application there.
the appropriate fee. Okay. All right. Application rejection, resubmission. The building commissioner shall reject any application that is incomplete, that contains false material statements or omissions, or that is a sign which would violate any standards within this section within 30 days of receipt of said application. Failure to act. If no sign permit has been issued within 30 days after the application has been made, it shall be deemed to be denied, which is kind of opposite of what we
What
normally
we
do.
typically do.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
Or we
it's
could
just
flip
a
it,
sign ordinance. It's not.
we could flip it the other way.
Well, what, I mean, I'm just trying to make sure that we have discretion to deny it by inaction, right? Like I think the statute for the zoning stuff, like the special permits and things, we can't.
Right.
But this isn't under any of those statutes, so I think we can set the default as denial.
I stole it from somebody.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'd rather deny than approve by inaction.
Is that in general or
Just
in
in
the sign
life. But-
Then you wouldn't do anything all day. You'd just sit around
sit around
and
and
go,
deny.
denied.
Well,
I mean,
for the sign ordinance, part 5,
All you
I
do
agree.
is check off
I'll go no
denied.
further.
I mean, do people feel differently? I mean,
No, it's
if
the
we
way-
don't do, if the building department doesn't do anything for 30 days, do we want the sign to be approved, or do we want that to be considered a denial and they have to?
I think it should be approved. This guy can't get off his buns and get it taken care of.
Yeah, and
Then
that would
it's too
be
bad.
his fault, not the applicant's fault.
Exactly.
So that would be approved.
What if he's hit by a bus?
Then what if
Then
there-
there's gotta be
what if
someone
he
to
didn't
take
approve
his
because he
space?
found a piece that was incomplete in the application? Would that require him to say denied and make you restart the process? Or what if he went to you and said, I just need to get this information?
He actually has to reject it if it's
He
incomplete.
has to if it's
Okay.
incomplete.
I
Well,
guess.
I'm tending to agree with you too, believe it or not.
Yeah, if he
Yes.
doesn't act, it's approved.
Okay.
All right. Sure.
You know, I have to say that.
I don't think it's a
Gee,
huge
thanks,
deal either way.
Jimmy.
Yeah, sorry. You're welcome.
Okay.
Thanks for the endorsement.
Should it be determined that the sign permit was issued in error and/or pursuant to an application containing false information or omission, or a sign not meeting the standards of this section, the building commissioner shall revoke said permit and the subject sign will be immediately removed.
Yeah.
Jesse's right about the pluralization of omissions.
False information or omissions.
Can we back up to number 3 real quick?
James
I
had
just-
another plural.
I just wanted to make sure you caught that pluralization where it said the last sentence there. Well, I guess it's all one sentence, but it says of a complete application.
I took it out. I took the S out.
All
Yeah.
right.
Thank you.
Like I said, I was sort of, you know, under the gun on this one. So I'm sure there's tons
I
of
think
typos.
that's right. I mean, issued in error is kind of a broad
Right.
brush where conceivably that could be building department error, and now you're taking somebody's sign down, but
But that happens now
that's sort of the way
in,
it goes.
well, for instance, if there was a case recently in the building department ZBA where the building inspector provided misinformation to the applicant. The applicant went ahead, and then he called them out on it in terms of being a violation of the zoning code. And they came back and said, but you said that we could do this, and it doesn't matter. Even if it's an error, the zoning code is the zoning code, and that's what holds, so.
Doesn't matter. There isn't like a
Doesn't
waiver
matter.
argument or anything.
The ZBA didn't buy it.
They need better lawyers.
You talking about that, you talking about that lady with that fence?
That's pretty tough.
Yes, I was
though, if
trying
you
not
come
to,
Yeah.
I was trying not to bring it up, but
I was
thank
at
you,
that,
Harry,
I was
for
at that
putting it on
meeting
the
that
public
night.
record.
Yes.
I was at
That-
that meeting that night, and that ZBA that night, if I had
Careful.
anything to do with that,
Oh,
Careful.
careful, you're on.
You're on public
I would have
access
somebody look
television.
into it.
All right.
Anyway.
All right, so, okay, that's good. Expiration.
Okay, expiration date. A signed permit shall become null and void if the work for which the permit was issued has not been completed within a period of 6 months from the date the permit was issued, provided, however, that the building commissioner may, in his or her discretion, issue extensions covering a period not to exceed 1 year from the date of the original permit.
How is
So
that-
basically, it's another 6-month extension.
What does that extension look like? They decide whether they want to issue it, but is it a written extent? I mean, what is that?
I don't know how they would do their paperwork. I would presume that there would be some documentation saying that they have an extension.
So
Yeah,
if someone were to call you on it after 7 months, they'd have to prove that they have an extension somehow.
Probably, well, yeah.
Okay, so all the other stuff was skipped for now.
Yeah.
I went down to enforcement. The building commissioner is hereby authorized to enforce all the provisions of this section. I didn't get to the maintenance and removal, abandoned signs, dangerous defective signs, or removal of signs yet. So I just kind of jumped into the appeals process, because this has been,
This is the interesting one here.
well, this is the one that, I mean, I believe that everybody should have some form of relief, but right now it's so arbitrary,
Yeah.
and
Is
it's,
this not arbitrary?
that's
Doesn't this
just.
look like the ZBA can give a sign to anyone they want?
Well, this is where I think where we need to talk
Yeah.
about is, you know, do we want it to be, like, how do we want the findings to be? And so I was thinking we may want to hold this or think about this,
Yeah.
because as we go through, I think, you know, for example, the mills have always come to the ZBA looking for relief from the sign ordinance, because the signage that they want to put on, because based on the scale and the mass of those buildings in comparison to one another, warrants them to have a huge sign like Eastworks does.
Right.
That you can see from the street because it matches the scale. If you hold them to the same standard as any other business in the Mill Industrial District, so, you know, do we then just know what those potential reliefs are and make sure
Right.
we have language in there that addresses that, and that this is really for almost kind of like a variant
That's
situation?
exactly what I was thinking.
Or, you know, or do we leave this a little bit more wishy-washy? So I think that's sort of where we
I
need
guess
to,
we
like.
see where we come with the guidelines, but my thought is that, I mean, we've talked about this, there've been so many exceptions to the sign ordinance that tells you the sign ordinance needs to be fixed, right?
Right.
And that you should put that in there. So like if we know things like the mill buildings, we can
those in there.
designate signs into this ordinance. And my thought is that there's gotta be something unique relating to, you know, the structure, the land, or something like a
Right.
variance that makes it an exception, as opposed to just being like, well, my sign's really cool and it doesn't, and the neighbors don't mind, right? Like, that's basically what this says, is like, my neighbors don't care and the sign otherwise would be cool and it doesn't, you know.
Well, except it does talk about the scale, which I thought was good. That it's got to be and again, that I don't like that term reasonable.
But reasonable
I don't
relations.
like that because it's really arbitrary. So,
All right, so maybe we set the whole appeal process aside until we figure out how,
I don't know. I mean, some of the things that, you know, under number 2, I didn't know where we wanted to go. What is the circumstance that you can actually ask for relief? And I think that's really an important question, and kind of what you're getting to, Jesse, is that, is it anytime that the building inspector denies your permit, can you then go to the ZBA? Kind of like
Like
a special permit
special
or
permit,
a
right.
building decision, you know? That there's an appeal process for that decision. Is it, you know, what is it for? Like,
Right.
what's the circumstance that would allow you to go to get a special permit? And then I think that from there, then we can sort of start talking about the details.
Well, I hate to throw a kinker in here.
You do not, Chad.
Well, no, my wife and I, we go out on, sometimes on Sundays and drive around and I see different things. What about movable signs?
We'll get there.
That's definitely one of the
We're-
definitions.
yeah.
Is that
A-frames
gonna
and such.
be part of it?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
in the outline.
Right.
It's in there. We're not dealing with the regs of the signs quite yet. We haven't got there yet.
You should see the ones they
difficult,
have out
but
there. It is
my inclination is
a
to try and
mess.
give her something so we can try to refine it a little more each time,
Yeah.
rather than bypassing it. I mean, it's tough, but I kind of like the idea that you know, you have an appeal process after you've been denied,
Yeah.
and I don't know that it requires much more than that in terms of the criteria for, you know, what.
How you get in front of the ZBA.
Yeah,
Right.
in terms of what the ZBA then looks for, you know, that I think we need
Well,
to
I'm just
hammer
thinking,
down
I
a
mean-
bit more, but.
In general, it's still just gonna be, Jessica, a regular, like, can't you appeal any building inspector's decision to the ZBA?
Yeah, I guess you can.
Right,
So
so
it doesn't
like-
matter. So that's irrelevant.
So you can, so I think that they'll sort of be able to get in front, I mean, I don't imagine like a flow of, you know, 15, that's the concern, right? Is that you're gonna have 15 sign appeals every night and
Right.
the ZBA is gonna be bogged down, but I don't think that's gonna be the regular course of business.
Well, doesn't it cost the individual some cash to get into front of the ZBA?
Yeah, right? Yeah, building inspector appeal, there's a
Yeah,
fee.
what does that cost, you, $100 or something like that?
I don't think it's that high, is it?
Jessica, what does that cost to get in front of the ZBA?
For a building
It
inspector
depe-
appeal.
It's cheaper than special
It's like
permits. I
40
wanna-
bucks or something,
No,
isn't it?
it's more than that. I want to say it's like 75.
So,
But we don't really wanna
Still,
use
it's an
that as the
expense.
barrier to an appeal, right? I
No.
mean, it's,
No. No, if a person wants to appeal, they've gotta pay the fee, but,
I think they can just by right appeal the building inspector's decision anyway. I'm inclined to go with you, Jim, is that you, if you want to come to the ZBA and say that they made a mistake, you can, but if we create a very strict guideline for when you can grant relief, then a frivolous appeal will be heard, it will just be rejected.
exactly,
Right.
I feel like that's the way to proceed with it.
that's, we gotta give them
So-
something
Sorry,
to
run that
work
by me
with.
again.
So that it's, I mean, it's basically a by right appeal. That anytime you're denied, somebody can appeal to the ZBA and
But
we're
they
gonna
can do
put
that
off-
anyway.
Right, but we're gonna put off the hard part of setting the standards for the ZBA to grant a special permit till another day.
Okay, so we're not going to do that part.
But the idea being
Okay.
that you do have an appeal by
have-
right,
you have a
and if
right,
it's
yeah.
frivolous, then you just won't, if you don't meet the requirements, you'll just get rejected.
And I think that even though you're right that it happens automatically, for the sake of making it understandable to someone reading this, it's good to kind of mention that they have that right.
Yeah, but if we put it down in the right wording, the ZBA will have an easier task to deny.
That, I mean, that's what that's
We
I
need,
think a
right.
chore for another day. But yeah, we do need to figure out what the standard's gonna be for a special permit.
Now, one last piece with regard to, so we're saying it's, and I like your way of saying it by right. You mentioned here a deadline for filing for an appeal.
Like right now, if there's an appeal, there's a 20-day appeal period for a special permit. That's typical for special permits that the planning board and the ZBA grant.
Because if it's 5 years ago, it doesn't qualify anymore. So if we don't set a deadline, we're allowing these kinds of things. to
Right, I
exist.
think you definitely need to set some sort of appeal
We
timeline.
should probably also look at what the standard appeal of a building inspector's decision limit is, right? Because you can
Yeah.
generally just appeal that.
Uh,
Yeah, because
But I don't know if that's
Go to
every
the standard.
decision. I know that, like, the ZBA deals with that appeals from building inspectors' decisions, but I don't know if it's like a global appeal of anything they decide.
all right. So, I'm still confused, and so what is the circumstance that somebody can seek a special permit from the ZBA?
But if it's denied.
Only if it's denied?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
When else would you?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know, I'm just asking.
Yeah. Anybody who's denied,
I'm just looking at some of our
Well-
other examples here, and I've
within
got
the
one
deadline
here
for
that
filing for an
says,
appeal.
right to appeal, any applicant for a permit any person who's been ordered by the building inspector to incur an expense in connection with a sign, or any person aggrieved by,
I was gonna say, you might want to appeal if you're challenging a sign and the building inspector allowed it.
so it's not just the person who's putting up the sign, but it's
Right.
anybody else could appeal the decision too.
Right.
Right.
I hadn't considered that. That's a good point. In which
Yeah,
case,
really be careful with the wording.
it's any. I would change it, and I'm throwing this out here. Any awarded sign permit can be appealed within the deadline for filing, from the granting point of the permit or the denial.
I think you can be like even broader and just say like any aggrieved party may challenge any building inspector's decision with respect to a sign permit or something like that. I mean, make it as broad. I don't know. I mean,
So you have, and I'll just use 20 days for now. We still have to hammer that down, but you have 20 days to issue an appeal for a denial or
approval.
approval.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm
Okay,
just.
here's one from Belchertown. Any person having an interest in the sign
Yep.
or the property may appeal the determination of the building commissioner ordering removal or compliance by filing a written notice with the town clerk within 30 days.
Does that person have to be a resident?
In other words, if a resident doesn't like that sign, they can appeal
It
it?
didn't say
Well-
resident. It said any person.
I mean,
Any
that's
person, right.
that's the question, right? So like, I mean,
Having an interest in the
you
sign.
can sort of see both sides, right? Like, as a resident of East Hampton, you know, if we're gonna, if the building inspector approves Anini's putting up a 40 by 20 foot neon sign, I should be able to challenge that. On the other side, it's not my property, I don't own the business, and I'm not in a butter, so, I don't know, I kind
So,
of,
so here's what we know for sure.
So
The
that's-
trigger
that's when
point
your
is the
experience comes in,
issuance,
like-
is the issuance of a sign permit or the denial of sign permit. One of
Right.
those is the trigger of the time at which the
either
deadline
one, right?
begins.
Yeah,
And the people that can appeal are either the person awarded the sign permit or a resident.
Anybody can appeal it. The question is whether they have standing in the courts. And that's for the courts to decide, not the planning board,
Right.
in my opinion. Right,
well,
Jesse?
but
I
unless
mean,
we're appealing, I mean, we're setting up an appeal process to the ZBA, though.
to
So
the
we're
ZBA.
deciding standing for, and I mean, so that's
I
the whole
guess.
point. So
Yeah,
if
yeah,
we
yeah.
say, we could say any applicant or a butter or owner, or we could say any resident, or we could say anybody. I mean, you could,
I prefer
Or
the resident.
anyone.
I mean,
Right.
If someone comes in,
There are plenty of
Could be a
business
property
owners
owner.
that don't live in East Hampton.
Right.
So you can't say resident.
okay, that's fair.
so you
That's
could
fair.
say applicant, owner, or resident,
Right.
which eliminates a concerned area resident who's not a citizen of East Hampton.
Applicant, owner, or resident of East Hampton.
Of East Hampton. I mean, that's kind of,
Because Pride Stores comes in here and they apply for a sign permit.
Yeah.
sure.
You know, they're an applicant, they're not based here. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah.
I mean, that also gives one other condition, and what if it's that same person who then wants to challenge someone else's sign? They're not a resident here, but they do business here. So,
Right, that's a good point, right? So if you, my Nini sign, I just grabbed them out of my head, but if you're, you know, the next door business and you are not a resident, you wouldn't fall under that definition.
you wouldn't, no, so you couldn't. Which is, and I want them to, you know, what I don't want is someone who's visiting from, you know, pick someplace, Australia, and and says, I
Well-
don't like that sign, to start a process, and, you know.
Well, they'd have to be here during the 20 days
Which
after.
may be why that's the language, any person who has been ordered by the building inspector, or by the building, never mind, to incur expense in connection with the sign, like I'm thinking, you know, the 40 by 20 foot sign goes in next to my building and all of a sudden I have to spend money to do something different to my sign.
Yeah, but you haven't been ordered to incur
No,
the
you haven't
expense.
been
I
ordered.
think that's to get the building owner or the applicant, right? So it's like, I have to put up the sign even though I
Right.
don't own the building.
I think the people who are involved are the sign owner, a resident, or someone who does business in the community, but I don't know how to word that last part.
Well, that's gonna be pretty broad, right? So, I mean, you
Yeah,
could
anyone
be,
could do business in the community.
yeah.
I could be driving through from my house
Yeah,
in
it's
Florence and
too-
going to Dunkin' Donuts. I've done business in East Hampton.
Well, and
That's
I mean,
tough
is
to-
that, so the question is, would you rather eliminate a local business who has a concern about it but is owned by a non-resident, or would you rather include a non-resident who's concerned about the sign that was just approved? I don't know how much of either is really gonna happen, but
Yeah, I say just pick it and keep it to applicant, owner, and resident.
All right, I gotta say something there.
please do, Harry.
All right, this doesn't really pertain to this, but it's definitely signs. What if a sign becomes damaged? Can somebody
We're
make
gonna-
somebody repair
We
the
have a
sign?
dangerous or
Yeah.
defective sign section. Please hold to the to a future meeting.
Oh, there's something going on in Northampton right now with that Calvin sign,
Yes.
with that A being
Oh,
missing,
yeah.
and
I've
they're
heard
really
about that.
complaining over there.
Yeah.
Would anybody have any teeth in the fight?
We can talk about that in section 10.083
Okay.
when we get there.
I mean, all we're trying to hammer out right now is just this part 2 of the 10.8.5, which is, and I think we've got the two parts of it when it triggers, right?
Right.
Yep.
That we have.
Really?
Are you comfortable with the trigger?
I'm unclear.
Any building inspector's decision in response to an application, rejection or denial.
Yeah. That's our trigger.
I had any aggrieved party may appeal. I have only issuance or denial.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
those are the triggers. We still need a deadline time, and then we need who the aggrieved parties are.
I'm inclined to go broad and just say anyone. I mean, I don't know. I feel like
I agree with that.
Yeah,
all you're doing is you're getting a hearing in front of the ZBA about what's gonna happen.
if you think it's worth it, you gotta pay the money.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean,
That's a good point.
we can, and this is a classic example, right, where we can get input from the community, because I don't know what people are gonna be thinking,
I
but
think it's a good place to start from. So,
I don't know where you wanna draw that line, so maybe we just don't
I
draw
just
a
think you
line.
say everybody, and then I agree. I let them go through the process.
Right.
Don't deny somebody the right to have to go to
The
have
special
due
permit and have the
process.
special
Right.
I'm
permit.
convinced.
Yeah.
You know, everybody should have the right to due process, whether we think they have a right to have it or not. So
And we've all thought of people in each of these classes that we were gonna kick out that would have a valid claim, right? So I'd rather have some frivolous somebody who drives through from Westfield and files a claim than a business owner next door who can't, so.
Yeah.
okay.
So now we know who the appealing person can be. And the only thing we don't have is a deadline for filing.
But we were going to check
But
on
we should
building
check
permit
and s-
appeal deadlines
yeah,
first.
Or what the language, I mean, I don't know if any decision by the building inspector can just be appealed by right already or what, but we should certainly be consistent with that if it is.
Right.
So I'm going to use the language, any person having an interest in a sign
Where
or
are
the
you,
property.
Jessica, please?
Wait, no, but there's, it's more than
Where are
that,
you?
because I think
I'm in
it,
Belchertown.
I think an interest, I think having an interest in the sign isn't like I'm interested in it. I think having an interest in the sign is usually like a legal investment,
Stake,
like a ownership or,
So you want it even broader than that?
yeah,
So you
because I
give
don't
me
think that
language.
gets a neighbor. I think anyone having
Give
an
me
interest.
language.
Anyone.
Yeah, I think anyone aggrieved by a building inspector's decision.
All right, hold on. Anyone aggrieved, I can't spell, aggrieved.
Well, I can call it the
By
building, by the building commissioner's decision.
Has the right to appeal.
May appeal to the
May-
ZBA within X days.
You're going to come up
Of
with a
the
number.
decision
Is
in
that what I'm
question.
hearing on that? You're going to
I
look.
think, yeah, we should try to figure out
Within X number of days.
of the issuance of the decision.
And I like your idea of going with whatever the standard for the building commissioner already is, if they have a standard.
Yeah,
And
It's
stick-
issuance of the permit, because it's not a decision, right?
but it could be the denial, issuance or denial of the permit.
Okay, I agree with that.
Issuance of or denial. Issuance of the permit
Or denial of the permit.
or denial.
Yeah, it can work either way.
Okay.
Within.
Anyone aggrieved by the building commissioner's decision may appeal to the ZBA within X number of days of the issuance or denial of the sign permit.
Sounds good.
Bingo, I feel like we've done something.
How long is this gonna be fun for? 'Cause I'm still having fun.
Me too.
Next Christmas, I might not be.
We got a piece of that done, and you did a lot of
I
work.
was just gonna
here.
say,
Thank
near
you.
Thanksgiving, Christmas, it's not gonna be
So
fun
just
at all.
to wrap up here, so we're gonna hold off the required findings and we'll continue that discussion to another meeting.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then just the miscellaneous provisions, these are very boilerplate, but they're also very important.
Yep.
So basically, the first one says if there's a conflict between this ordinance and any other ordinance, the provisions of this section shall still control, provided they are consistent with state and federal law. And the severability, which if any section or provision of this section is found to be by a court of competent jurisdiction to be invalid, such invalidity shall not affect the validity of the other sections
Yeah, I
and
think
provisions
you're
of
missing
the-
some language in there, but.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, it's like, you know, if Reed v. Gilbert comes down again and says you can rule content, or whatever it is.
Right.
There's still sections that are valid, even if the other sections are not valid. And that
intent. I
currently
like it.
doesn't exist in our current sign ordinance.
What do you
which
think
makes
is
me
missing?
nervous.
I think the stuff after the comma there, shall invalidity shall not affect the validity.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's something missing there.
I'll find it.
We have months to work on that, but
Months.
awesome,
Okay.
Jessica.
All right, so there
So
we
you're
are.
going to continue to just do this. We're going to do piecemeal fill in the blanks and
Yeah.
march along. I think it's
Don't
great.
you think it
think it
works okay?
It works really well, right?
Yeah, it's-
None of us want to
I
spend.
think it's better that way.
We don't want to have like a 4-hour marathon hearing where we do
No.
all this at once, right? This is great.
I look forward to the little bit of sign
All
ordinance
right.
every 2 weeks.
As you said, if it takes till Christmas.
Yeah. All right. Administrative items. Master plan update.
We wanted it on the agenda.
Does anybody have one to give or?
Well, I emailed John Brenner, yes, and have not yet heard from him. I just emailed him this
Yeah,
morning.
we're just gonna have to beat on them.
All
So I
right.
emailed him this morning, and hopefully he'll get back to me with a time that I can hook up with him and pick up that information.
I'll get it back to you.
Excellent.
Yep, he's a good guy.
Any other administrative items, Jessica?
No.
Anybody else?
No.
Harry's got something.
I gotta give a retraction on the CPA thing. I said we gave 25 grand to the Islamic Trust over the bridge.
Yeah.
I gotta retract that because they never applied for it. There's gonna be a lot more than that apparently, so they're gonna be coming down later on. I thought they were gonna apply for that to be in this cycle, this funding cycle.
Yep.
But they're not gonna.
They're waiting.
Yeah,
gonna
there's a
increase
lot,
it.
there's a lot more involved,
All right.
so it's gonna be real expensive, I guess. They're talking,
They want 100.
yeah,
Cool.
super cash.
Keep us posted.
So it should be interesting.
All right.
I motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right. We're free to go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.